Chapter 228. Dax's secret djinn kept attacking the scorpions in an attempt to keep them at bay, but when the truck got close to the town, a scorpion seemingly buried in the rock rose up, tossing the truck into the air. It crashed, crushing 2 wooden buildings before hitting a tall rock. The back door was forced open, and 4 vagabonds, including Valentina, came out. Most of them were bleeding, with cuts on their bodies or faces. Valentina also had a cut at her forehead, but swiftly summoned White when she saw the terrible state of the driver. He was barely even alive. The blue marks on White's horns glowed, and glowing blue water manifested out of nowhere. The water wrapped around the driver and other vagabonds, glowing brightly, and when their wounds were healed, the glow would vanish. "Move it," Dax's voice fell into their ears. He had fallen off when the vehicle was thrown into the air. When they looked at where the voice came from, they saw countless giant scorpions behind him. A great amount of dust rose up in the wake of these monstrosities. "Move," Dax bellowed, leaping as he entered the boundary of the town. Mid-air he summoned Jinn, who stomped the ground and launched itself into the air. Its hammer glowed like a volcano, and it swung it down, smashing in the head of a scorpion, while magma burst out of the ground, melting the bodies and heads of other scorpions. About 4 of them were slain, with 3 others retreating with heavy injuries that would certainly lead to death. But their numbers were still too much. The sounds made by countless scorpions could fill an entire troop's heart with dread. However, right at the boundary of the town, the scorpions all stopped. Dax blinked several times as they turned back and scuttled away. "What just happened?" he muttered. "Dax, we have a problem," a voice called out to him. Dax turned back to see the truck in an upside position. There was a huge dent beneath it, destroying the integrity of the vehicle, officially rendering it useless. "It's all right, those monsters are not after us any longer. We need to scout the terrain before searching for a place to stay. Water and food is our main priority." "Have you ever seen a purple gate before?" Valentina interjected with a soft, genuinely curious tone. Dax looked at her and exhaled. "I've heard about it from Gabriel. There are so few of them that many think it doesn't exist. A purple gate is like the combination of a red and blue gate, but with an extra set of rules." Dax looked at everyone. No one can enter Purple Gate after the first group. It usually vanishes after it takes a raider, and reappears to either release the raider who would have cleared the dungeon, or it would reappear for another brave individual after the last one had perished. It has hordes of monsters like a red gate, a vast terrain like a blue gate, and seals off the exit. The only way to leave is to kill the boss. "What are we going to do then? Can we kill the boss?" Valentina asked. At that moment, a knight appeared on the tall rock which the truck hit. Ballista's cloak fluttered, but his black armor and helmet that had no opening for any of the facial orifices made him quite dreadful to look upon. He leaped and landed with a metallic thud. His chainmail clinked softly as it rubbed against the metallic plates with each step the knight took toward the group. "We are not alone," Ballista told the group as he turned his head toward the left. Kekek sharp senses. A snicker rang and several portals opened as individuals in black robes revealed themselves. They all looked like some nobles in a secret cult. Their eyes gleamed with demeaning light. Like the likes of the vagabonds were beyond them, more like food they would reject even if given. Fanatics, all of them are superiors. A vagabond frowned as he swiftly summoned his elephant. They all knew the fanatics had a society of superiors and inferiors, a noble and commoner archetype, but unlike the later, here superiors were deemed to be much better in combat. From the portals, skull-masked cavalrymen emerged with menacing horses, also wearing skull masks. Green flames billowed from their hooves, eyes, and nostrils. The cavalrymen used chains to control their mounts instead of reins. Their weapons were broad axes with intricate designs from the handle to the axe blade. Only the sharpened part was exempted. There were over 40 of them, and each of them were king tier. Ahead of them were 2 different kinds of summons. One was a centaur, dark as if made by the night itself, with a grey helmet from which his moon-like eyes glowed from. Grey chest plate, vambraces, and leg guards for his horse legs and back. This centaur knight had long braided white hair before his hooves, and a white tail. This 13 feet tall knight also held a tall spear and a round shield. His black cloak fluttered softly. It had the features of the demon race. It was a 14.5 throne tier demon centaur. The other one was a skeleton centaur clothed in a ragged light blue robes that looked so old it had lost its prime color. The bones, however, seemed to be made of black and silver metal, and there was a sheathed crescent blade attached to its waist. It was the summoner of this skeleton summon that laughed. He was a Saint-tier summoner after all. With a powerful 16.5 by his side, he didn't understand why an origin tier still had to be seen to oversee things. All the vagabonds unleashed their own summon, while Dax stood before them. "Hand her over and we shall spare your lives." The general, summoner of the Saints' tier skeleton summon, pointed his finger at Valentina. "You'll have to walk over our corpses," Dax replied firmly. "Oh, as you wish then," the general replied. "I hereby order everyone to protect Ms. Valentina at all cost. I'll handle these ones," Dax ordered. His eyes gleamed as he removed the mask that looked like a prison for his mouth all this time. His eyes turned white, his crimson hair grew, as his skin also turned crimson. Volcanic rocks came out of his skin that now looked like the body of an active volcano, and it formed a hammer. The scar across his eye glowed white. His tier alone rose to 16, the tier of a divine tier. A summon disguised as a human. Remarkable. The Grand Moon, watching from afar, raised an eyebrow. Dax and Jin, they weren't really summoner and summon after all. Just like the Pathani race, there once existed one called Ignikai, a transformed race that became one with fire and magma after Mana came. Few knew Dax's summoner, even fewer knew he was a summon because his summoner raised him like an actual human child. What held his secret was the face mask that protected his lower chin, which couldn't be turned into normal flesh no matter how much he tried. Jin was just his pet, the same way Leviathan was the war mount of Percival's Sea King. Jin grew bigger, reaching 15 feet. It was like he also threw away his facade, revealing his 13.6 tier as his aura filled the place. No longer looking like a human, but a humanoid volcanic being with pure white eyes and massive red hair with golden stripes, Dax, summon name Volcanic Flame Prince, tore through the wind as he accelerated from 0 to several hundred mph in an instant. His hammer kissed the skeleton centaur's face with uncanny precision, launching it through the wall of 4 buildings in one blow. The demon centaur turned toward Dax when something blocked the light above. Upon raising its head, the centaur saw Jin above him, swinging down his mighty hammer. It didn't even roar like one would expect such a barbaric-looking beast to. The centaur blocked the blow with its shield. The impact created a ripple that tore the surrounding buildings as if they were made of biscuits and not hard wood and nails. The centaur's spear pierced through Jin's chest, forcing it to stagger backward. The skull cavalry made a detour around, chasing after the vagabonds. An elephant spat a great deal of water like it came out of a geyser. Once it splattered on them, the water would swiftly freeze. It could also bloat a target, forcing them to explode, but these cavalrymen were king tiers, beyond the tier of the elephant. One of the skull cavalrymen threw his broad axe, and it struck the elephant's head. The summoner collapsed the moment his summon fell. Seeing this, Valentina's eyes watered. She was astride White, who ran with all its might, while Ballista followed. "Do not stop," Ballista urged as he turned and summoned nearly 100 bow knights, but they were all 7.8 high tiers. Their arrows were able to delay the skull cavalrymen, but it couldn't kill them. Ballista pulled out 3 arrows as he watched his unit get decimated, and fired them. These 3 arrows split into 9, accurately lodging deep into the skulls of 9 cavalrymen. But the others were already upon him. One of them swung its broad axe, billowing with green flames at Ballista. The flames blew Ballista through a building and into another street. He recalled hitting a wall and falling to his knees, but a hand stretched out toward him. "Rise, your training has paid off. You have been appointed to be amongst the esteemed apostles." The voice rang, but in the next moment it flashed. A different voice spoke to him this time. "You failed." Ballista could remember how he fell on his knees along with the other knights as the royal apostles walked past. He could have been amongst them. With such strength, he could stand before the unknown king. But now he was blind and left with a bow. Useless, with invisibility to match, he couldn't even do much when their world fell. "I can't fail, not anymore." Ballista shot forward. He ran until there was no more street but rows of houses before him. With a deep grunt he dashed, shattering the wall. His speed kept increasing, lightning crackling with each wall he shattered. Some skull cavalrymen turned to their right. Something was following them, and it shattered buildings in its wake, like an angry bison. Just then Ballista burst out of the wall, an arrow in his grasp. He stabbed it into the neck of a skull cavalier, pulled it out, and plunged it into the other by the first cavalier. The bow knight leaped back. knocking and releasing 3 arrows which went through the chests of the skull cavalrymen, and the impact sent them backwards. They hit some other cavalrymen while others evaded. Ballista knocked his arrow, but his omni-vision allowed him to notice that a skull cavalryman who took a detour would meet Valentina at a crossroad. He took a swift turn, firing his arrow in the process. It left a lightning trail and a sharp visible curve midair as it made a great semicircular sweep and drilled through the cavalryman's forehead, right in between its brows before it could intercept Valentina. The cavalrymen dismounted, about 15 of them, and dashed at Ballista at the same time. Ballista grunted. He was already out of mana, any more usage, and he might be retrieved back to the chamber. Tightening his grip around the bow, Ballista faced off against the King-tier cavalrymen. They surrounded him, attacking from every side. Ballista fought back, evading their attacks, deflecting with his giant bow. One skull cavalier grabbed his cloak and dragged him back. Ballista twisted himself, landing on his feet, but faced flaming blades from both sides. He laned, the blades grazing past his helmet, but then something golden flashed. A blade sliced through his armor, opening deep gashes on his limbs. Ballista fell to his knees as this golden being, a woman made of golden light with a long crescent blade, stood behind him. Ballista saw the skeleton centaur approaching. Blood dripped from its crescent sword, and there was a glowing image of a woman's face. It was the face of the sword spirit that attacked him. Just as it was about to kill Ballista, glowing water manifested around him, healing the bow knight. The skeleton centaur brandished his blade, blitzed forward, and tore more gashes through Ballista, who was healed once more. Ballista tried fighting back, but the centaur was too much for him, much more the deadly sword spirit. Once more, blood stained his armor as he was cut down. The skeleton centaur looked at Miss Valentina, who wasn't too far away. Her eyes were trembling with tears. She didn't even know if healing Ballista was the right thing anymore. She was just making him go through this torture again and again. "I need your aid," Ballista said, still willing to fight. The golden sword spirit stood behind Ballista, who was on his knees, held his chin, and placed her sword at his neck. "You fought well, knight, now sleep." Godfrey laid on the grass, exhausted. He had finally faced a man with boxing talent that had no equal, and his defeat was terrible. "Stand, we'll stop at sunset." Arian stretched his hand toward him. Godfrey grabbed it and rose to his feet. Just as they were about to begin, Arden's harpy landed not far from them, and Arden came out of it. "There's a problem. Dax's team encountered a strange dungeon and..." "And what?" Godfrey's expression changed. "Your mother was also in the truck that vanished." What?" Godfrey's face went dark. As the sword spirit's blade tore through the chainmail that protected his neck, a scene flashed in Ballista's mind. He saw a vast space somewhere in the castle, with thousands upon thousands of Golden Order knights on one knee, unit by unit, all petrified, and behind them loomed a throne with a dark silhouette sitting on it. "My king!" The sword spirit was about to slice off Ballista's neck when Valentina forced her primal stag to interfere. It swung its horn at the spirit. Although the primal stag was already an origin tier, none of its factors were invested in defense or offense, making its attack weak. Its main factors were healing and speed. The sword spirit turned swiftly and grabbed the primal stag's horn before flinging the huge creature, along with Valentina, to the wall of a building. In that moment, a portal appeared beside Ballista, and from it, Godfrey walked out. Before they even saw him, the aura of an origin tier swept out. Godfrey saw his mother against the wall, and his knight barely holding on to life. He laid a hand on Ballista's pauldron. "You did well." As he retrieved Ballista back to his soul space, Godfrey's eyes gleamed. So this was the handwork of Cain's fanatics, the same people who killed his father through a dungeon. The skeleton centaur dashed at him. The summoner within it aimed to cut Godfrey down before he unleashed his summon, but to his shock, Godfrey grabbed his large, crescent blade. His gleaming eyes went to the sword spirit that leapt toward him. He snapped the blade when the spirit was close, and it dispersed while the summoner within the centaur couldn't believe his eyes. Whatever was left of the skull cavalryman charged at him as the skeleton centaur took a step back. Dying now wouldn't be worth it. He should just go back and continue feeding. He'll eventually be strong enough. The centaur summoner gave Valentina one last glance before retreating, but he didn't even take 4 steps when he spotted a knight. The knight's cloak covered his entire armored body, but not the silver-headed axe placed on the ground. while his gauntleted hand rested on the bottom of the axe's long handle. Long ears came out from both sides of the helm, and above the visor were a pair of golden glowing eyes. Golden antlers, like that of the primal stag, branched off the top of the helmet. "Who said you could leave?" Godfrey's frosty voice made the fanatic tilt his head. A dozen or more skull cavalrymen were dead, brutally cut down by this human's bare limbs. A man cloaked in black robes, with a completely shaved head and full white beard, sat on a chair with 4 skull cavalrymen flanking him. The image of a full moon was tattooed on his forehead. He shot to his feet when he sensed Godfrey's aura. "Those fools can't even get a job done. I should have made this quick," Mr. Lee, the Grand Black Moon, said with a furious yet controlled tone. "Grand Moon," a summoner called out from his summon, one of the skull cavalrymen. Mr. Lee turned to the cavalryman, and then toward where it looked. His eyes widened at the sight of a knight on the hill. Because of the terrain, some places went down, some up, and there were lots of small hilltops with wooden towers just for lookout. On the cliff of one of the hilltops within the town stood a golden armored knight. The sun happened to be positioned behind him, so the light made it partially impossible to ascertain who or what stood there. Solstice stood there, his short swords drawn out of their sheaths. He was his crown prince's judgment given form. His dragon eyes dilated as his armor turned crimson. The scale metal pattern became more draconic and fitted to his agile, towering frame. However, he had no cloak. His tier rose 20.3 as he harnessed half the powers blackout state could grant him. What's that?" One of the fanatics in the skull cavalryman stuttered, dread filling his heart. He was a feared king tier, but where was this feeling of dread coming from? It was nearly suffocating. Mr. Lee quickly unleashed his summon, a black-skinned, humanoid creature with a jackal's head. It had black claws, held a gold staff, and had powerful-looking digitigrade legs. The aura of a 20.8 origin tier summon billowed off it. It was then Solstice leaped high, as if becoming one with the sun before plummeting like a comet. A loud sound rang as he crashed into a house. In the next second, he burst out of it, tearing through a dozen houses in an instant before swiftly taking off the heads of 2 skull cavalrymen. Solstice swung his right sword at the Anubis summon, who planned to grab the sword, but when it sensed the heat, Anubis used the golden staff instead. The moment the right sword clashed with the staff, the earth, about 100 feet radius around them, shattered. Solstice followed up with another slash from his left sword. Anubis blocked it but barely leaned back to avoid the right sword. Both swords moved like one, not like different weapons but both sides of one thing. With a grunt, Solstice swung both swords, unleashing flames as hot as the sun. Anubis didn't expect such heat, as everything behind it was erased by the flames, even the earth turned black. 2 deep wounds appeared on Anubis' body, forcing him to tap his staff against the ground, and a portal appeared before Solstice. Hundreds of hands pulled the knight into a dark realm. A world of death and fear. Solstice could see countless dead people and beasts gathering above him while he drowned in a black puddle. Suddenly, a massive sun erased these creatures, revealing that this was a fireball with the power of the sun in Solstice's hands. It was much bigger than the knight who lifted it above his head. The light of the sun went wide, spreading far into the depths of this darkness. Fear settled in the heart of a realm known to inflict fear. Solstice tossed the fire, consuming Anubis' realm of the dead. With that, the dragon knight emerged while Anubis fell to his knees, his golden staff clattering to the ground. Solstice placed his gauntleted hand on the summon's head. Flames burst out of the summon's head. Solstice blitzed away. He slammed away old carts, shattering them into 1,000 pieces, while leaving a huge wake of dust. Mr. Lee clutched his chest. His summon was dead. Somehow he knew that would be the outcome. Now he was racing through the town to their rendezvous point. No one told him the boy had another knight. There would have been another origin tier with him. Suddenly, a loud sound made Mr. Lee look back. It was the Crimson Dragon Knight, bursting through the roof of a building like the nightmare it was. A night had never been more dreadful in Mr. Lee's life. When Solstice laid eyes on Mr. Lee, he stretched both hands, scraping the edge of both swords against the walls of buildings. That mere scratch caused those buildings to burn. Mr. Lee staggered backward. Solstice moved, taking off his head and splitting his body with another sword slash from the other sword. Both head and body burned while the knight turned, sheathed his swords, and left without a word. Long is it going to take? Arden turned to Arian and Gabriel, who stood beside her with lots of other vagabonds behind them. We don't know. Purple gates can vary. It may take a week or a month depending on the... Gabriel paused as the purple gate opened and dark silhouettes appeared. Godfrey was the first to come out with his mother by his side. Behind them were vagabonds that survived. About 2 out of 6 were able to be healed on time. Where's Dax? Thalia asked while Isaac, Lucy and Percival looked at Valentina with worried eyes. Is he? Thalia couldn't bring herself to finish the sentence. He's not dead, Godfrey replied as Solstice and Lysander drew out the slain fanatic summons. This was the fanatic's attempt to kidnap my mother. I would have lost her if not for my comrades. Godfrey looked down. He could have made Dirge raise them back up as shadows, but it didn't seem right to him. He cared about what the families of these people would say. Besides, shadows lacked memories of their past. Dirge didn't even want to turn her sisterhood into shadows. Then where's Dax? Oliver, who sat on a truck like he wasn't that affected, asked. All we need to know is that he's alive, Arian said when he discovered Godfrey found it tough to speak. Gabriel smiled softly. Let them rest. We've just lost some of our comrades, and if Godfrey said Dax isn't dead, then he isn't. He looked at Thalia, who clenched her fist tight. He's gone. He must have spent quite the amount of mana, even consuming his replenishment, Oliver thought. When Godfrey saw the expression Oliver revealed from his eyes, which was the only part that wasn't covered in white cloth, his own eyes narrowed. He knows. You did well. The world would have turned upside down had Cain gained your mother's summon. Gabriel patted Godfrey's shoulder. We should kill them all, every last one that utters the name of Cain reverently, Godfrey said coldly as he walked past Gabriel. Gabriel sighed as he tucked his hands into his trench coat. I fear he grows colder. His mind is still so easy to manipulate. He's just 18, he'll grow, Arian said as he watched Godfrey and his friends enter a truck. His eyes narrowed on Percival, Isaac and Lucy. They'll all grow. A being came out of a purple gate. It was the demon centaur and its summoner. Both were in a large hall and bowed when the woman standing at the top of the dais turned to face them. She wore a silver robe with the tattoo of a beautiful silver moon on her enchanting face. Unless Nerissa covered her face with her hood, no one below Grand Moons dared look at her. Bowing was the norm, or one would risk becoming a slave to their emotions, and thus spiraling deeper into Nerissa's control. We failed, the summoner declared, but after waiting for a while, he didn't get a response. It made him lift his head slightly only to see a nonchalant expression on her face. Before his mind wandered off, the summoner swiftly looked away. Unfortunately for him, the image of Nerissa's glossy black lips flared up in his mind. His eyes widened. That face, it was flawless. To the summoner, it felt like his mind worked against him. Why did you lose? Her son came. I believe he killed Grand Moon Lei, or he would have been here already. I fear obtaining the primal heart will be tougher than we expected. The Skull Cavalrymen, Grand Moon Lei's elite, were all wiped out. There's been a change of plans. Mr. Lee was only sent to test the waters. That woman only has that summon because it exists. Nerissa's words made the demon centaur summoner frown before it dawned on him. Yes, all summons are souls taking the shape of something that already exists. Their lord, Cain, must have seen a civilization that had used this as the foundation of their existence. It was the only explainable way he would know that the primal stag's heart doesn't become useless once you take it. Then did this mean? A group of Cain followers in black coats with fur necks moved in a snowy mountainous terrain with a coffin made of ice with water inside with them. They had giant summons carrying the coffin. Miles away, a majestic creature stood on a mountain top. The snowy wind blew its white fur. The primal stag looked at the hundreds of creatures making their way up the hill to meet it. All of them were injured. A huge golden eagle laid behind it. On this snow-capped mountain, no beast fought. It would have been an alien sight to any human to see a beast coexist for once, but that was because this stag was a monarch-class beast. They all needed it, and even beasts understood this part. A week passed. Godfrey sat on a bench outside, while other vagabonds went around doing whatever they wanted. His eyes widened when he saw a truck driver into camp, raising a lot of dust. The driver's seat opened, revealing a face he thought he might never see again. Dax. Godfrey rose to his feet and approached Dax, who came down. Now he knew Dax wasn't human. He was from another world, a world overrun and destroyed by dungeons. Godfrey extended a hand and Dax took it. "You owe me," Dax said lightly, his face mask tightly wrapped around his face once more. "You're summoner." "He doesn't like to be known," Dax replied as other vagabonds gathered, excitement on their faces. Godfrey smiled when Thalia and Arden embraced Dax. His Asian look made him quite popular with the ladies. Heck, even Lucy approached him. It would have been cool if Isolde were here, Godfrey thought. He relished the warmth in the air. "We haven't enough time in a while. I bet Dax is going on an outing with his squad. We're the shadow team. What about a beach party?" Isaac said as he swung his arms around Godfrey's shoulder. "He's not wrong," Percival spoke from behind, his arms crossed. "That sounds. Godfrey, before I forget, Captain sent for you. Percival, the watchman wants you at the tower," Arden said. Both Godfrey and Percival looked at Isaac, whose expression soured. A loud knock on the metal door woke Isaac from his bed. Part of his disheveled hair covered his eyes, and just by looking at his face, anyone could tell he was disoriented. "Who's it?" Isaac left the bed and dragged his feet to the door. "I said, who is it?" He opened the door. His droopy eyes widened at the sight of Lucy in a black top and blue jean skirt. She crossed her arms with a disappointed expression. "Judging by that look, I guess he just woke up." Percival's calm voice came from the left. Isaac poked his head out and saw Percival leaning against the wall, his hands in his pockets. The blue-haired young man wore white long-sleeved shirt and pants. It complemented his sky-blue hair, which was shaved at the sides. Isaac wiped his eyes. "What's going on?" "It's a hangout. Godfrey wants to give us a proper tour around Paradise. He's been here longer than all of us," Lucy explained with excitement. "I thought he had an appointment with the captain, and you were supposed to meet the watchman." Isaac looked at Percival, who rose from the wall. "Let's go, he's not coming." Percival began to walk away. The look Lucy gave Isaac said, "Dress up quickly, you moron." Some minutes later, Isaac came out of the building and saw Percival and Lucy leaning on a pickup truck, speaking to Godfrey, who sat behind the truck. He wore a short-sleeved black top, plain pants and white sneakers, but those dark shades were all it took to transform this plain dressing into an excellent outfit. All thanks to Godfrey's figure. In terms of physique, Godfrey easily came out on top amongst them all. The size of his biceps weren't that large, but they were sizable. Godfrey might not have Percival's charming face and pale skin, but he had a well-defined face and a better build. A smile graced Isaac's face as he jogged toward them. It felt like they were back to their high school days. Only one person was missing. Isaac would be lying if he said he didn't miss Isolde and Godfrey's soft banter. Maybe one day she would join them, and the club would be complete once more. All of them entered the pickup truck. Godfrey started the engine and drove out of the camp. As they drove into the main city, Isaac looked out the window. "I have to admit, I would have loved to meet whoever built this city. The setting is deliberately different from the outside world. It's like an old-fashioned structure mixed with our modern setting. Smart, feels so much different from the outside world, which is kinda like the idea of Paradise." Lucy agreed while looking out. "As you all know, Paradise has 2 districts. This is the Mainstream district," Godfrey said as they drove through the street. A good number of buildings here were white. All were made from bricks and painted white, nothing like the glass structures in the outside world. This district was unbelievably clean, with lots of sprites flying around to make sure dirt was handled. The buildings here had unique and complex layouts. Godfrey drove them to a spot and stopped. It was a magnificent square. Percival and the others saw a huge waterfall with towering statues. One of the white statues made their eyes widen. "Isn't that the captain?" Isaac gasped. "This is called the Great Vagabond Sanctuary. Statues of legendary captains of the Vagabond cohort are built here. Members of the cohort are like mini-celebrities. We're the only ones who can leave Paradise after all," Godfrey explained. "I can't believe camp is made to look like some abandoned prison, and the main city is like the steampunk era had a child dipped in honey," Isaac grumbled. Lucy smiled softly as she watched the summoners move about. She pouted jealousy at a young woman who placed flowers at Captain Arian's statue with her elven summon. The summon wore a white medieval-looking gown with an ornament made of leaves around her head. "I'm pretty sure all of you have heard of Happy Ever After. It's one of the most popular places in Paradise," Godfrey said as he drove off. Yeah, Thalia can't stop speaking about it. In fact, most regulars have been there, Isaac responded. Should we go there, or let's head to the Mist District next? I think we should go there last, Percival stated. The others agreed, and Godfrey drove off, taking them to many places before they arrived at a bridge. Both districts were divided by a narrow river, said to be artificially constructed. Isaac brought his head out the window when he saw the bridge. Is it me, or does it look like Brooklyn Bridge? That's why it's called Brooklyn II, Godfrey chortled as they stopped. Many other cars came to a stop on the bridge as the middle section of the bridge went up, splitting at the center in order for a ship to pass. Paradise did have a little above 20,000 people, but with the addition of their summons, the number skyrocketed to 40,000+ inhabitants. When the bridge connected once more, the cars were allowed to move, but the moment they entered Mist District, they had to park the car. In this district, the main means of transportation were trams. The entire road had railways for trams and electric poles overhead to power these streetcars. Here, the buildings had varying colors but maintained blue roofs. It was an exhilarating ride for the club members, as they boarded one tram after the other to get to places like the George Hotel, known as the most luxurious hotel in Paradise. It had services people in the outside world would drool over, and that service was this hotel was entirely run by fairies. As long as one awakened a fairy summon, they could get their summons a job here and live off the salary. Isaac pleaded for them to stay one night, but Godfrey vehemently refused. His constant no rang continuously as they left the district at sunset. Welcome to happy ever after. Godfrey's voice rang as they parked in the famous outdoor eatery. There were wooden tables and stools with purple heads on a white pavement floor. The tables were spaced quite adequately, and there were white buildings with purple roofs around the open space. On one of the buildings on the left was a neon blue light in the shape of a liquor bottle. Below it was the name of this popular spot, and there were blue neon lights shaped like candle flames on the top of every building around. There were narrow, spiral towers built in rows after the spot where the tables and stools were. The pavement was purple, matching with the roofs of these spiral towers and the nearby buildings, all of which offered different kinds of entertainment for those who have come to experience the happy ever after. There were tall purple trees and green well-trimmed flower sculptures. Isaac pointed at a tall white statue standing in the heart of this beautiful place. It was a man with a wizard's heart and full beard that went down to his abdomen. He held a crooked staff with one hand and stretched out the other one. Who's that? Isaac received a strange glance from a young man. Don't you know the watchman? That's him, the young man said before turning to his friends. Did he just come out of a rock, or is he just that dumb? Strange, that face looks familiar, the young man thought, taking a second glance at Isaac as he walked away with his friends who were laughing. On the other hand, Isaac couldn't believe what he just heard. He turned to the others, and they were all trying to hold back their laughter. Isaac pointed at the statue. That's Gabriel. The moment he uttered that, everyone laughed. Godfrey exhaled several times to stop laughing, but he just couldn't. The most hilarious thing about this was how bold these people were with their misconception, even to the extent of mocking someone who had seen Gabriel, not just once either. Okay, stop laughing. Isaac glared at them. Percival nodded, stifling his laughter, but Lucy slapped his back and he began to laugh. What's so funny? Isaac clenched his teeth, glaring hard. Godfrey wrapped his hand around his neck. All right, come, let's go order our meals. Isaac clicked his tongue but followed, while Percival and Lucy found a table for the four of them. After ordering their food, on their way back with the tray, Godfrey and Isaac saw the young man that spoke to them before heading back towards them. His gaze was different this time, with a dangerous glow in his eyes. A portal opened up next to Isaac, and a summon came out. It looked like a human with black hair, but this being had wolf ears, long black claws, glowing golden eyes, and flames billowing from his forearms. The moment it appeared, the way human summon launched a fireball at Isaac. Isaac lifted up his tray as the fireball blasted a hole through it. It extinguished after he dodged it, showcasing the summon's intricate control. Percival and Lucy stood up, while Godfrey's sharp gaze locked on the way-human summon, who was prepared to lunge, and the summoner heading toward them. I remember you, Blake bellowed. You nearly killed my brother, your own classmate. As Blake bellowed, his summon conjured a large amount of flames around Isaac. What are you? Isaac froze when the face resemblance got to him. Blake's friends tried to stop him, but the young man was already lost in rage. He could remember his brother's condition in the hospital, and it made him rage even more. "Stop," Godfrey said, and the Were-human felt something sharp against its neck. It was Solstice, the Dragon Knight, standing behind him with a sword ready to take off his head at the slightest movement. "You just attacked a member of the cohort. That's a crime punishable by a few years in prison," Lucy declared. "Go to hell, I'll kill him, vagabond or not. I'll drown him below the bridge, the same way he almost drowned my brother," Blake hissed while his friends held him. "Is that so?" Percival made water chains wrap around his hands, bringing him to his knees. His friends were blocked off by a wall of water, while Percival brought out a small blob of water. He didn't plan to kill him, just give him a taste of what he wished for another. Blake's eyes widened as the water encased his head. He struggled, but his hands and feet were held down. Bubbles went up as his life slowly slipped away. "Stop, it's our fault," Lucy held Percival's arm. "What?" Percival raised an eyebrow while Godfrey sighed. His eyes were on Isaac, and from his expression, it seemed like Blake had a reason to attack. Although he doubted that reason was enough for him to stand aside, while someone threatened to kill his friend with such crazed intent. The natural thing to do was eliminate the threat. But there was order in paradise. Godfrey turned to the paradise policemen heading their way. There was already a crowd of people watching the scene. The policemen came with their golem summons. The golems, after enhancement from Orion, were now elite tiers. The blue flags attached to the backs of the golems meant their enhancement gave them the ability to conjure and manipulate water or ice. "Good evening, sirs," Godfrey greeted the policemen. Their solemn expressions changed when one of the policemen whispered to the others. "I think that's an elite-class vagabond. It's not just him, all of them here are from the cohort, with 3 being elite class." "You mean they're at least king tiers?" The captain of this unit gasped. Worse, the blue-haired one and the golden-haired one were recently ranked as the most powerful vagabonds in the cohort. Upon hearing that, the captain broke into a smile. "We are terribly sorry for the disturbance. You heroes risk your lives for us, and some ungrateful ones still ruin your free time. We'll handle this." As the captain spoke, a golem seized Blake, who had not yet recovered from almost drowning to death. After they left, Godfrey and the others sat down. "What are you hiding?" Godfrey asked. Lucy lowered her head, while Isaac couldn't bring himself to speak. "After Silas Bane joined our class, bullying increased. Isolde skipped schools quite often, Snow barely cared, the others like Siegfried loved it. Isaac tried to bring order, but what? He couldn't stop fighting once he started. He killed a student and beat 5 others to the extent they were barely alive. They weren't the only ones, but the management covered for him. I think that the man that attacked was the brother of one of those students." "You killed someone in school," Percival frowned. "It was bound to happen eventually," Isaac said with shut eyes. "Shut up," Percival rose up from his seat, his eyes gleaming with anger. "You just couldn't stop, always looking for a fight. Maybe Godfrey should have left you the way you were, at least you're immune to punches." "Percival, stop," Godfrey said. "Do you want to tell him he did right? He defended himself. I won't be around to hear that." He was angry. "We all have our flaws. You still haven't learnt control. Every time you lose it, thousands are affected, most die," Godfrey retorted. "Now I know you didn't do it on purpose, but..." Godfrey sighed as Percival stormed off. He knew Percival hated fights, and only went off the rail when his family was threatened or his life was at stake. Isaac, on the other hand, went from a victim of bullying to harnessing a massive amount of power. Percival had power from the start and learnt control. Isaac gained power with a flawed mindset and lost control with ease. Godfrey looked at Isaac after Lucy stood up and went after Percival. He picked up a glass filled with purple liquid. It was Happy Ever After's iconic fruit juice, the purple apple juice, an apple that only grew in paradise. After taking a sip, he dropped the glass cup and looked at Isaac again. "I can't say anything. If you expect me to say something wise or helpful, then I'm sorry, because I'm also flawed. I've been in your shoes, I've been in Percival's, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm far from perfect." He sighed. "We live in a world where killing isn't far from your doorstep. Like everyone, I avoid asking the big questions, the questions that go deep, like what of this person's family? Why? Because we walk on a tightrope. Questions that affect your sanity make that robe wobble. Mine already is. I'm blinded by rage just like you, so how can I tell you what is right? Just don't become me." Trust me, it's not pleasant looking at people and thinking of course this person would sell off my mother if the situation demanded it. When Godfrey said that, Isaac lifted up his head. Oh, I just got a word of wisdom. You made a mistake. Godfrey tilted his head toward Isaac. Don't let it define you. I don't regret saving you that day either. He smiled softly. That's rubbish. Isaac scowled but smiled in return as he stretched out his hand to take a glass only for Godfrey to snatch it. You threw yours away. But you already have one, Isaac pointed out. I'm drinking this second one on behalf of Isolde. Godfrey pulled his hand back when Isaac tried to get the glass cup. He swiftly downed both of them. Where's my apple juice? Percival's cold voice rang from behind. Godfrey froze. He might have. I'll go get one for you. Isaac raced off. I think he's trying to smoothen things out with the two of you, Godfrey said. I can see that. I left because you needed space to speak to him. Percival crossed his legs as he sat down. Lucy also sat. What did you tell him? She asked. Not much, Godfrey replied with a soft smile that made Lucy and Percival raise an eyebrow. Shortly after, Isaac returned with their drinks. The moment he sat down, Lucy brought up a topic. I have a question. What do you think Isolde is doing at this moment? Sleeping, Percival replied. The skis were already dark, so he guessed according to the time. I don't really know, I can't guess, Isaac replied. All of them turned to Godfrey, who became puzzled due to their stare. Why are all of you staring at me? Well, what's your answer? Lucy asked. She's either painting or in the gym. What about you, Lucy? In a gym with grey walls and bright ceiling lights, Isolde wore reading glasses and flipped through a book with one hand while doing pull-ups with the other hand. She looked relaxed while doing this. 2 white earbuds were stuck in her ears. 2 dragon officers watching her through the gym's glass wall looked at each other. She's absurd. She's doing that with a suppressor on, and she's been at it for a while now. A man walked through the hallway towards them. This gym was, after all, located in the mansion. Hello, I'm Snow. The young handsome man introduced himself and was cleared to go in. He entered the gym and blinked at the sight of Isolde. Isolde came down and dropped her book at the sight of Snow. What brings me here? Snow asked while looking around. I saw your letter. Yes, Godfrey told me what he told you, and that's why I want us to kidnap Mr. Manhattan. What? Snow tilted his head as if asking if she had gone crazy. I went on a mission for the authorities some days ago. I used it as a new opportunity to explore my adapted ability that allows me to see into the past of others, and I believe Mr. Manhattan is too odd to be excluded. From my findings, he sometimes behaves like a completely different person, Isolde said. Of course you'd pick me for this mission and not your husband. After all, if it all goes bad, I will die but not him. Snow spat. Don't you want to know if you're a clone and if you are one, how to disconnect yourself before Kane takes control of you? Isolde raised an eyebrow. Snow's expression became solemn. And besides, you're always jealous of Godfrey. Do this and you've beaten him. Nothing he's ever done can surpass detaining one of the 7 heads. I'm not jealous of Godfrey, Snow responded fast. Isolde rolled her eyes. I know I'll be able to fish whatever Kane is hiding from him, and once I do that, we'll declare it to the world. It might cause social unrest, but it will severely weaken Kane's political and mental hold on the world, Isolde stated. Just the 2 of us. My family is making arrangements with the 3rd strongest family. They'll be able to handle the backlash. That is why we can't fail. The first meeting of the Association of Origins will be held soon. We have to become members before then. So you're an Origin tier summoner? I'm not, Isolde's response made Snow's eyes widen. You haven't met the mana tree, have you? He asked. Isolde shook her head. I see, if you have, you might have already surpassed Origin tier. Nevertheless, I have no doubt you'll be accepted as a member. Let's go, Isolde walked past him. To where? To get our accreditation. The authorities want to see what every target can do. Your tier tag alone isn't enough to cut it to become a member of such an elite association. They're the deciders of Earth's fate. An hour later, both of them walked into a green gate dungeon and saw a large expanse, a burned field with a great number of iron-faced blue-skinned trolls. They had long tusks protruding out of their mouths. It looked no different from an elephant's tusks. Their shamans launched flame balls into the air. All the flame balls combined together to form a massive fireball that seemed to be the sun in the dark dungeon. Black glimmer billowed out of Snow as he took some steps forward and stretched out his arm. His palm was wide open. He drowned in his own illusion and projected it outward. The moment the fireball almost struck his palm, it burst into thousands of butterflies. Isolde, who wore a white blouse on a slightly free pantsuit with heels. She gracefully walked past Snow as the trolls charged towards them. An ice spear manifested in her grasp. Upon brandishing it, purple portals opened mid-air and 10 meteors fell from it. It wrecked the battlefield and she shot off, blitzing through the space between them on heels. Isolde pierced 3 trolls with one thrust, pulled out the spear, flipped it midway and skewered another 3 behind her. She somersaulted backward, pulled her spear off the bodies and drilled the spearhead through the head of another troll. As she swung her spear once more, a white dragon emerged, in sync with the movement of her spear, breathing out a large amount of ice that swallowed almost 100 trolls. Isolde flung her spear. It spun below Grace, ripping through trolls while the dragon flew above, breathing ice on the trolls. Snow, who was supposed to be a participant, stood there watching. Awesome, he gasped as Isolde made her way back toward him with a large head. It belonged to the troll boss. As they came out of the Green Gate dungeon, which was a recently shut-down industrial site, the media were waiting for them. From different platforms, cameras were flashing. A dragon officer rushed over and gave Isolde her coat. She draped it over her white, which she made sure wasn't stained. This Green Gate dungeon was said to have a 20.8 origin tier reading, and you went in just 10 minutes ago. What did you face in there? According to your statement online, you plan to join the Association of Origins. Is this true? Miss Isolde. Master Adonis, we would like to know more. 3 days later. I wondered how she was able to grow so fast and be able to kill an origin tier, even if she wasn't one. Snow thought as he stood in a facility on Pendragon Island. It was beneath the river around the island and was made of thick steel plates, and there was a glass chamber in the center of this round, rod-like facility. Snow stood on one of the upper mezzanines, holding the railings as he watched Isolde, who sat in a glass chamber at the bottom. She was surrounded by 6 elderly men, all of whom sat in meditative postures as they channeled the mana they just attracted with the meditative exercise towards Isolde. This way, Isolde gained mana from 6 Saint-tier dragon summoners, and this mana, along with the great amount of dungeon cores, were able to push her summons through the aid of her first one, which slackened the limits of her dragonfly and hornless white dragon to higher tiers. Currently, both of them have risen to 19.5. With their combined powers, she was able to kill the 20.5 peak divine tier troll boss. The reason the dungeon was ranked an origin tier was because of the great number of trolls within it and the unfavorable terrain, which meant whoever went into there would be swarmed. I have to admit, she works hard, real hard, Snow muttered. It's strange that with all her credibility, the mana tree still hasn't called her. Does it need to? Snow turned to the individual who spoke. It was Godfrey. The young Pendragon approached him and crossed his arms. What do you mean? Snow asked. Well, since my cousin decided to bring you here, I'll tell you. She actually has 3 summons, and we think the strongest has to at least be at the tier of a paragon. Godfrey's eyes gleamed. Paragon tier, wouldn't that make her one of the top strongest in the entire world, if not the strongest? Snow squinted. There are people out there, plausibly a handful, but there are people out there with such strength. Most of them do not reside on Earth anymore. Let my cousin gain access to her first summon. She might be amongst the top 10 strongest on Earth, but since her summon might be a dragon, I'll say top 5. Godfrey smirked. Access, so she has a summon but can't unleash it. That's odd, Snow responded. It's a pleasure to meet one of the youngest origin tiers on Earth. I had to take the advantage to meet you. After all, your class is famous globally. Manhattan produced its elites, you, my cousin, Percival and Godfrey. Unfortunately, none of you are truly loyal to the authorities, which is a big loss. Snow looked at Godfrey from the corner of his eyes. He wasn't comfortable with the topic, so he exhaled. What's going to happen here today? There has to be a reason I'm actually here. Godfrey looked at Isolde. Isolde is going to try to get to her first summon. Since it can't get in, she wants to bring it into her soul's space. What? Snow's eyes widened. He calmed down a minute later. Is that even possible? I have no idea, Godfrey just replied, right before Isolde's scream pierced their eardrums. Both him and Snow looked down to see flames bursting out of her flesh. Flames blasted outwardly, slamming all the elders against the glass wall. The impact was so hard the reinforced glass wall shattered, and all of them hit the metal wall, forcing it to cave inward. Hearing her painful wail, Snow looked at Godfrey. This isn't normal. Both of them were about to leap down, but a palm held their shoulders. Turning back, they saw Arthur. Isolde's screams slowly subsided as he gazed at them with a solemn expression. She failed. The reason she's screaming is the mutation at work, Arthur said softly as he looked at Isolde, who slumped to the floor, heaving with pain-filled breaths. Mutation. Every time she tries, she's failed, but her symbiosis rate for her summons keeps increasing. The forceful flow of mana altering her human biological system at such speed causes pain in some situations for a certain duration of unconsciousness, but she's never gone unconscious. It's a better path where you don't have to feel the pain, but I don't know why her mind refuses to shut down. Arthur's tone was heavy and sad. Snow frowned as he remembered Damien, his senior in Manhattan. Damien had something similar, but his own occurred right from the moment he awakened. At that moment, Snow realized. Damien awakened his summon and got all the access at once, but Isolde's own process has been gradual. When symbiosis crosses the limit of 50%, the summoner's humanity is at stake. Whatever that summon is, it's also increasing the percentage Isolde has with her other two summons. At this rate, I doubt she's even human. Snow mused inwardly as he watched Isolde heave like a badly wounded dragon as medics rushed in to attend to her. Everything reflected in his irises. It's either Isolde is so special she's the only one in the world to experience this, or there's just something I can't figure out here. Isolde, there are still so much mysteries about you. While Snow thought about this, Isolde could only see flashes of Godfrey's faces as several summons with healing capabilities worked on her burnt flesh. Her eyes suddenly glowed, forcing her to gasp. She saw Godfrey in a black robe with that red-haired black female knight behind him. It made tears roll down her right, unburnt eye. This damn knight. The scene changed again, and she saw the Black Knight almost taking off Godfrey's head with a spear, but he just stood there. The scene changed, and she saw a meteor crashing into Earth. Lots of things flashed through her eyes, voices, and it finally ended with the face of a man. It was Ronald Daniels. Godfrey's father. He was alive. In the end, her eyes closed. Peace came as all her wounds were healed, but her strength had received a great boost. After 2 days of rest, Snow watched Isolde walk into what looked like an arena. The summoner weakening the beasts locked behind thick metal doors deactivated his summon's ability, and a strange silence descended. Snow wasn't the only one watching. Arthur was here, so was his wife, the elders, and a few others. Of course, the only reason they allowed him in all these was because he had decided to join Isolde in this deadly mission. While Arthur and his wife would attend the meeting and do their best to handle the attention of the general audience, the two of them would slip into Mr. Manhattan's office after his speech. The next thing after Mr. Manhattan's speech was well-detailed information on the current state of the world pertaining to dungeon outbreaks. A loud sound echoed, and Snow's attention returned. He saw one of the thick metal doors had a huge dent, and what followed were blue flames, melting the hinges and launching the door a couple meters away. A black dragon with red stripes emerged. Other doors came down, and dragons came out of all 6 of them. Although the wings of these dragons had been cut off, it didn't reduce the threat of 6 saint-tier dragons. Combined, they could take out a divine-tier creature, even if it was at the cost of their lives. So they want to check her current strength. I don't know why, but it seems as if the Pendragon family has abandoned the route of a summoner, depending on their summon to a summon becoming fuel for a summoner's strength. Snow narrowed his eyes. Just then, the dragons breathed torrents of flames at Isolde. The flames met and blazed high, but Isolde wasn't there. Snow's eyes gleamed. I couldn't follow her. His heart pounded as a dragon fell, its massive head completely decapitated. Isolde stood by its side, holding a spear with blades at both ends. The spearheads were made from purple crystal, which had Nyx's abilities. Its ascendant skill of nullifying defense, a skill that gave it an advantage over creatures, allowed the spear to slice through the dragon's scales with an uncomfortable ease. It was almost like cutting butter. Seeing that happen to one of the world's toughest beasts could make one's legs grow weak by each ticking second. Isolde exhaled a frosty air as her eyes gleamed, but this time with a violet color. A grey image of the 2 dragons by her left and right, boxing her in for the third to breathe flames, flashed in her eyes. The moment that scene flashed, she saw the dragons on her left and right moving toward her with great speed. Isolde launched her spear. The impact of collision threw up the head of the third dragon and pinned it to the wall. She slammed her feet into the ground, forcing ice spikes several meters large to protrude from the ground, killing the dragons on her left and right side. The last one dropped to the ground, lowering its head. She made a dragon bow. Seems fitting for the dragon heiress. Snow raised an eyebrow. He could see it. Isolde on her own was equal to an origin tier summon. Her choices had been either gain access to her first summon, or push the mutation of her 2 summons through the first. At least it was a success. She had made declarations to the public and was now an origin tier. This way, there was a 100% success rate on being accepted for the meeting. For no reason would she be rejected, at the very least. When Isolde left the fighting platform, she turned to Snow after conversing with her family. "It's tomorrow," Snow said. "I'll be there. If Cain is exposed, the entire Association of Origins will turn against him," Isolde said. "What if they don't?" "They do or they don't. I'll expose him, and I'll make sure the entire world knows of it. I don't care if they listen or not. They can't completely erase my words," Isolde replied firmly. Seeing Snow's conflicted expression, Isolde brought him to an open space outside and came back with a painting. "I painted this yesterday," she showed Snow. Snow raised an eyebrow. The painting was quite vivid but confusing at the same time. It missed a Manhattan in a dark background with 4 lights like faces around him. "What's this?" "I don't know, but there's something we need to find out from Cain, or we'll remain pawns. Only when we uncover his secrets can we have a fair fight," Isolde told him with a soft but firm tone. "You're right, his secrets are his main strength. Rip it open, and we might finally know what exactly we're fighting," Snow agreed. "Tomorrow it is." 2 figures stood 100 feet between them. The earth beneath their feet was filled with grass. Mountains, valleys, and hills covered with snow were around them. Adam fused with his summon, the Monkey King, looked at the shadow demon god, who had black shadowy tendrils for hair. He was 10 feet tall, skin black as night, with black mist billowing out of him. The shadow demon's nose was like a lion's, and his orange eyes glowed brightly. "Monkey," his voice rumbled. "SHHHH, who are you calling monkey?" Adam scowled. The shadow demon god squinted. "You killed a young progenitor I was grooming. For that I have sent legions to your world, and believe me, I will take it soon." The Monkey King lifted an eyebrow. "So, it's been 100 years since I've been there," he said. For a moment, the Monkey King's golden eyes flickered with emotions. Adam recalled how his wife and child were devoured by a beast right before his very eyes. He watched, his legs crushed, as the 2 souls he cherished more than anything in the entire world were taken from him. The pain went deep into his soul. Till date, he couldn't forget it. And that was the reason everything that wasn't human dies. The Monkey King's eyes became fiery as he pulled out a tiny needle that grew into a staff before swinging the staff over his shoulder. With this staff and his summon, Adam had gone through dungeon gates into different worlds, destroying them one after the other, and for that reason, he was named the world-destroying Paragon and now, the Mad Progenitor. With a smirk, the Monkey King stomped the ground, grew several times larger, and gained a stone-like skin, pulsing with fiery light. "You shall be the first god I'll kill," the Monkey King smirked, revealing his sharp canines. "What are you waiting for? Come." That was an outstanding welcome by Mr. Manhattan. A man stood on the podium addressing the audience. He had never and might never face an audience more intimidating than this one. The hall's lighting was quite dark, with the bright lights focused on the speaker. There was a screen of magnificent size behind the podium. The man smiled professionally. Even though there were a little over 100 origin tier summoners here, they were much less intimidating all combined compared to the 10 strongest summoners who rose from the 7 great cities. A single one of them could crush a dozen origin tiers. Arthur Pendragon, the man with a 14-headed dragon, I heard his power spiked massively after a recent fortunate encounter. It's obviously the mana tree. His firepower might as well be the greatest on Earth. After all, each head has the firepower of an origin tier. He's a terrifying man, the speaker thought inwardly. He noticed Isolde and Snow leaving the hall. Although the lighting was dark, he could tell it was them. "Youngsters," he sighed before looking at Gamel from Egypt, a man whose skin was kissed by the sun. He had golden brown hair and a sharp set of eyes that no one could easily glance past. His summon, the sky-darkening eagle, had human-like intelligence, and it was capable of speaking. That aside, it was the largest airborne beast on record. The speaker's eyes went to Merlin from London. The renowned Axe General owns a humanoid summon with remarkable physical capabilities. It's also so strong, it can shatter mountains with a swing of its axe. Also impenetrable due to its armor. Can't forget that. Then he glanced at Himari from Japan, the woman who had the nine-tailed fox, which had the most powerful beams with an equally terrifying range. That aside, the beams could pierce through the defense of other origin tiers with ease and also change trajectory. As if that wasn't enough, the nine-tailed fox had one of the most fearsome self-healing abilities on Earth. The speaker turned to Boris from Moscow, a bald man with a thick, slightly unkempt beard, large tummy barely kept intact by his suit, and massive muscular arms. His summon, the Skull Minotaur, I see. His inner voice choked when Boris glared at him. He almost collapsed on the spot. I am sorry for the delay, he coughed outwardly. Luckily, that didn't take more than 3 seconds probably. I am deeply honored to speak to you great men who have spent years in dungeons, just to make sure Earth is safe from the ravenous jaws of those monsters. But I must inform you that there are more threats, both outside our planet and within it. The speaker paused for everyone to digest it before he continued. We've spotted a dungeon outbreak in space, and it has unleashed a whale-like monster that can devour planet. We've also discovered the death rates of conquered Blue Gate dungeons have increased tremendously, and the reason was because of demons. As we speak, there is likely to be a Red Gate dungeon outbreak in South Korea. Yes, the eastern region, and we speculate a threat we haven't seen before. For that reason, all of you have been called, including the regional summoners who defeated the beast that ate some portion of Africa's landmass. The speaker's eyes flashed. He gestured to the screen and images popped up. They were pictures of the vagabonds, Godfrey, Percival, Arian, and the others. I'm sure you've heard of them after your return. These fugitives have done great harm to the society, and before we deal with the dungeon threat, it's best we handle this imminent threat. One of them can flood an island, the other has an army big enough to take a city. They're threats that must be hunted down. Boris lifted an eyebrow, his eyes gleaming with a menacing light. Merlin was much more composed while Himari just smirked. There were lots of subtle reactions from the origin tiers. 2 individuals in suits walked through a broad hallway. The moment they entered a narrow corridor that led to Mr. Manhattan's office, they found agents. 2 of them were about to speak, but Snow's eyes shimmered, and they turned to stone before crumbling into heaps of dust. Everyone outside, from cleaners to workers, were all in his illusion, an illusion where he and Isolde didn't exist. Isolde paused at the door, took a deep breath, and pushed it open. The moment the door opened, she saw Mr. Manhattan seated on his office chair, looking through the floor-to-ceiling glass wall. He could see the sprawling city in all its beauty. It was nighttime, and the city lights acted like a map to whoever watched from above. The moment the door opened, he sensed the hostility and swiftly opened a portal, but as the large head of his wolf came out, Isolde activated Nyx's nullifying ability. Mr. Manhattan's sharp expression morphed into horror as his wolf vanished along with the diagram of the portal, all while Isolde drew near. Snow closed the door behind them while Isolde grabbed the man's neck. Snow slid his hands into his pockets as he leaned on the door. Good evening, Mr. Manhattan, or should I say Kane's esteemed clone. Mr. Manhattan's horrified look suddenly changed into a relaxed one. Wow, I must say you caught me off guard. I never imagined 2 youngsters like you would be so audacious. How did you know who I was? Why are you so quick to reveal who you are? Isolde asked, tightening her grip around his throat. Mr. Manhattan smiled. You can't kill a god, little girl. You're a delusional man, Snow spat. What do you want? I will give you all that you desire, just name it. Mr. Manhattan said softly, but Isolde's gleaming eyes didn't show a sign of bulging. I could reveal why you can't unleash your first summon. Summons are actually part of your soul, an adaptive measure for humanity to survive, but that thing outside of your soul space wasn't made by your soul. Mr. Manhattan chuckled as he held Isolde's wrist. It's a monster that has lingered outside your soul space, waiting for the right time to feast. You're just a walking corpse right from the very first day you were born, little girl. Mr. Manhattan laughed as if it was amusing. Snow frowned. I don't want to believe a word he says, but that could explain a lot of things. Isolde pressed her palm on Mr. Manhattan's face, and her eyes gleamed with violet light. Mr. Manhattan's eyes turned violet, his face paled, and he trembled as Isolde pierced into his mind. She went deeper, filtering through all of the true Mr. Manhattan's memories, until she got to when he was made. She stood there in a translucent form as Cain, a dark-haired man, molded a human-sized figure out of white clay. She looked around and saw an endless number of human-sized sculptures and monsters. Men, women, children, even Barbies and very old men. Isolde couldn't believe her eyes. Cain's clones could be in tens of thousands, and after lots of reproduction, their numbers had multiplied greatly. Then she heard a voice and looked up. An existence came out of a portal. It wore a pitch-black cloak with thick fur around the shoulder. This tall existence, whose entire body was covered by this cloak, had 6 grey wings and 4 faces. One face was like that of a human, the other like that of a goat. The one on the left was an eagle face, but she couldn't see the one behind. "This isn't the dark seraph we were taught about," Isolde frowned. Interconnected scenes began to pop up. She saw Sebastian looking out the window of his office. He was gazing at Godfrey, who was about to go through his awakening. Isolde staggered when she looked at his head, and it was that of a goat. "It can't be," Isolde gasped, but found herself in another memory. She saw a man with an eagle head at the top of a library tower gazing down. Upon looking down, she saw Godfrey and Percival standing there. They even showcased how they could get to the top and meet this eagle-headed man. Isolde was certain they couldn't see that this man's head was an eagle's. It also didn't seem like a use of echo to her. It was more like Cain actually had 4 different bodies, 4 different personalities, yet it was one person. The entire world was lied to. By showcasing a fake dark seraph, no one would even guess it. From what she could assume, this eagle-headed man was in paradise. This meant Cain had a place in the authorities, controlled his fanatics, and even the vagabonds lived with him. The entire world, everything they knew, was built by this man. Isolde went backward. The entire world was like a chessboard to Cain, and there was no player on the other side. She saw the eagle-headed man send Godfrey to save Brooklyn and earn the favor of the people. Yet the human-faced him would control Mr. Manhattan to thwart everything. And then there was Sebastian. Godfrey was being manipulated without knowing. His emotions, his victories, his losses, everything pulled him further into Cain's grasp. Cain was even in paradise to welcome him with open hands. Godfrey has to know. The moment she thought of that, Isolde pulled herself out of Mr. Manhattan's mind. Isolde, hearing that weak voice, Isolde snapped her head backward and saw Sebastian holding Snow's head. His fingers were elongated, and so were his nails. Blood poured from Snow's eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, as the man slowly crushed his skull while suppressing him with invincible might. He couldn't unleash his summon. Before Isolde could react, a hand with claws pierced through her chest from the back. The owner of the hand retrieved his bloodied hand as Isolde collapsed to the ground. She saw a golden-haired man cleaning his hand with a handkerchief. "You should have asked Godfrey what happened to those who tried to pry too deep. This is the very reason I hate seers." This wasn't part of the plan. Sebastian's arms trembled, and he crushed Snow's head but snapped his finger, reverting him back to the second before he crushed his head. Snow didn't even know he had died. "Indeed, I'll try my best to handle the boy. He needs someone to be angry at." Gabriel looked at Snow. Sebastian also looked at Snow. Mr. Manhattan recovered at this moment and cracked his neck. He rose to his feet, his eyes resting on the blood spreading out below Isolde, who was already a corpse, her eyes still wide but the gleam was gone. "The boy hasn't gained full access to the castle, and we've killed the love of his life. How painful. He was like a child to me." Mr. Manhattan shook his head with a slightly sad expression. "Love is always filled with pain. The degree of the pain depends on the situation, and that is why we have disregarded such from our mind," Gabriel stated. "If you had resurrected earlier, we would have created a clone of her," Sebastian said, glancing at Mr. Manhattan. "Not long from now, I will rise and we shall be complete, but for now let him go mad. Let him thirst for vengeance, for more power, and in the process remove all the barriers in the castle for us to gain control over the most powerful army life itself has ever seen." Mr. Manhattan sat down. Snow's eyes were fixed on Isolde's corpse. His eyes trembled. In fact, his entire body shook from the shock. They were nothing but pawns to this self-proclaimed god. But with such power and control over the world, wasn't already the god of this planet? "You think I won't tell Godfrey that you—" The snapping of fingers echoed, and Snow woke up from a bed. He rubbed his eyes, rose from the bed, and walked to the living room. This was one of the best hotels in Pendragon Island. He raised an eyebrow as he opened the curtain and saw the sky was already dark. Did he wake up before it was daytime? It wasn't possible that he slept for an entire day. Snow picked up a remote and switched on the television. The first thing he saw was a picture of Isolde's corpse in the news. According to the news anchor, she was found outside the meeting hall where Origin Tears gathered, and the prime suspect was him. He could even see pictures of himself leaving the hall with Isolde. Snow's eyes widened just what was going on. He was just leaving his bed, and everything, both the depression and his body, proved he had not left the bed. Snow's heart began to pound. Around the globe, the news of the Pendragon heiress' death was the main topic. Snow couldn't believe his eyes as he searched his phone. It was the #1 searched topic, with many speaking of horrible things they would do to him and hopping for the police to capture him. Snow himself couldn't believe Isolde was dead. It just didn't seem plausible for that kind of woman to be killed like that. Minutes went by as he looked at the picture. There was no doubt that was him. The Origin Tears there would have sensed something using mana to impersonate him. An active skill would be picked up without a doubt. That meant the mission proceeded as planned, and they met Mr. Manhattan. But did they really meet him? He didn't know. Snow rose from the chair, put on a grey hood, and leaped from the window. He fell from the 50th floor of a skyscraper, and the moment he made contact with the ground, green and black glimmer burst out. The floor rippled as he sank into it, while people weren't even fazed. His illusions could control reality to an extent, so they didn't even notice a man falling from a skyscraper and vanishing into the ground. Snow came out a few blocks away and put himself in an illusion where he was an old man with a cane. He saw dragon officers in their vehicles heading for the hotel. Isolde, I'm sorry. Snow shut his eyes. Whatever killed her should have killed him too, but of course it didn't. Someone had to take the fall. I heard she's been moved to the mansion. As per tradition, should the deceased have a spouse, the partner must pay his last rites. Snow's eyes gleamed. That means Godfrey's coming. Knowing him, he'll be here with an unspeakable rage. It feels like we're being set to fight each other. I must kill him this time or he'll kill me. Snow suddenly froze, a sad smile crossing his face. I see it now. Everything in the news played in his head once more, and his aged hand holding the cane trembled. I'm the clone. His expression morphed into one of horror. Meeting Mr. Manhattan must have triggered Kane's control over me, but that doesn't explain how I got back to the hotel. In paradise, Godfrey sat on a bench playing a song he usually listened to, with Isolde when they did their morning jog. Since using phones was prohibited here, he got headphones with the music downloaded onto a memory card. Other vagabonds went about their daily lives while he just watched, sinking into the rhythm of the music. It wasn't every day he was this free. Some days he had missions, some days hectic training with Arian, and some lessons with Gabriel about other worlds. So far, he knew there were different kinds of humans. But none had the ability to summon forms of other races to fight for him like Earth humans. So, they were favored, at least according to Gabriel, and Godfrey didn't doubt it. Hey, someone tapped his shoulder. Godfrey looked up and saw Percival handing over a canned drink. Percival sat beside him as Godfrey brought down his headphones. Percival looked at the towering building that belonged to Paradise Watchman and chugged a mouthful out of his can. I've looked around, and I'll admit Paradise can't be Paradise without Gabriel. He even got the headmaster out of prison, just to make sure I didn't kill everyone in Manhattan. Godfrey smiled. He cares. The entire structure of this place cares for the people, not just as humans but as summoners, and without Gabriel we can't hide from the authorities. Percival looked at the sky. Hey Godfrey, did Gabriel tell you where Paradise is? Space, he's banished the entire place and locked it up somewhere in space, but if the banishment effect were to be nullified, we might return to the dungeon where this place was truly founded, Godfrey replied. Godfrey, Dax walked over with a dark expression. You're summoned to the Elders' Council. Why? I have no clue. Arden returned an hour ago and went straight to them, Dax replied. I saw her, she was acting strange, Percival replied. Oh, before I forget, you're also summoned, along with Isaac and Lucy. Dax's words made the young men puzzled. It might be another mission. Some minutes later, Godfrey walked into the hall. He was shocked to see his mother there. What in the world was she doing here, and why was she the only one? Where were the parents of his friends? His mother's expression made his heart shake. John, Inara, and Orion all gathered. This news had a lot of weight, especially when it was about to be given to an origin tier summoner. Godfrey, we have unfortunate news, John said. At that moment, Gabriel walked into the hall. Percival, Isaac, and Lucy looked at themselves. At this point, they had realized the reason for their presence might be to console Godfrey, but just what exactly happened? We heard the dragon heiress of the Pendragon family is deceased. She was killed by a classmate, according to the news. Isolde was killed. Godfrey smiled first before bursting into laughter. Valentina's heart sank. This disbelief was already the first sign. After all, this news was coming from the council. They would never gather here for a joke. Godfrey didn't even realize that he was clenching his teeth too tightly until he looked at John again. What? John rose to his feet. I'm deeply sorry. A sudden silence descended in the hall. Godfrey stood there while Lucy already collapsed, her eyes full of tears. Percival looked at Godfrey, unable to think of a word to say. Valentina almost broke at the expression on Godfrey's face. He looked so lost. Godfrey suddenly nodded softly, then turned back and began to walk away. With each step, his eyes got blurry. Tears gathered in his eyes. When he got to Gabriel's spot, the golden-haired man shut his eyes. I'm sorry, Gabriel said softly. A hand rested on Godfrey's shoulder as he dug the spot where Arian buried the mana fruit. He had just seen it when Arian grabbed his shoulder. Allow yourself to mourn, Arian said. No, Godfrey turned and Arian saw his side features. His sclera had turned black and his irises were gold. Control yourself, Godfrey. What are you going to do with a mana fruit when it doesn't work on your summons? You can't defeat the authorities alone. You'll only just get yourself killed, Gabriel said sternly. At least let us follow you, Arian recommended, but Godfrey's detached reply came again. No. He rose to his feet, turned, and walked away from both of them. I'm leaving paradise. His eyes zeroed in on Gabriel. Gabriel waved his fingers, and a tear appeared before Godfrey. A pair of beautiful golden-orange eyes fluttered before opening. Isolde found herself curled up like someone that had been crying, with her head buried between her thighs. She was hovering in a dark space, a space she was quite familiar with. Her soul space. This time around, Isolde discovered she was naked. Her eyes widened when she saw halfway down her thigh to her foot was covered with hard white scales. Her toes had fused to become 3, with sharp claws. The same thing happened to her forearms and around her right eye. She touched the scales around her eye before noticing the long translucent wings behind her. They looked like Nyx's wings but much bigger, with sharper edges. Shocked, a woman's voice rang, and Isolde turned. She first saw a hand covered with black scales pierce through the barrier around her soul space. The barrier had once been radiant, but now it was dim. Due to this, not just the clawed hand, but a woman with black horns, extremely long red hair with 2 braids resting on her bosom, entered her soul space. She had a long tail and scales all over her body, except her face. Her massive wings spread out as she hovered above Isolde. You took more than you could afford. What you see now is your soul, exactly what you've become. You're not a human anymore, but a part of me, the woman declared. I refuse. Isolde's reply made the woman raise an eyebrow. She was the current dragon progenitor, but there were complications of being in the realm of the soul. The power of tears wasn't exactly strict here. Will was the decider. Do I have to inform you that you are dead? The only reason you're still in this state is because of me. You would be dispersed into nothingness had I not decided to make you my daughter. The woman uttered with a condescending tone, her eyes gleaming with a piercing golden red light. She purposely forced Isolde to mutate. She had been outside her soul space right from its infancy. Her presence had forcefully made Isolde aware of her soul space, making everyone on Earth think she had awakened. This little girl, the woman grew furious. She was born here in the barren land of dragons to become the dragon mother, but leaving was more complicated than usual. Out there, a beast god has already arisen, while dragons, thousands of them, have been killed. Even the ones that took the strongest to bring down were in the barren land. The moment she got out, there would be an army of nightmarish dragons with her. The world would bow, and all this chosen vessel needed to do was survive until the mutation process was done. While both of them glared at each other, Isolde also thought inwardly. She was on a tightrope here. If there was a tiny chance of survival, she would take it, but not as a pawn. In that moment, the dragon progenitor moved. She wrapped her tail around Isolde's neck and flung her away. Isolde flew with great speed, but was stopped by the dim barrier. Pain coursed through her soul body. The dragon progenitor was already above her with a cold expression, like that of a furious queen. She breathed a torrent of blue flames from her mouth. The wings at Isolde's back fluttered, launching her from that spot and around the dragon progenitor. Isolde formed an ice spear, her eyes wide with intensity as she launched the spear. It shattered against the dragon progenitor's wings, which protected her face, but the moment the progenitor opened her wings, she discovered Isolde was above her. It was already too late to dodge as Isolde's axe kick slammed her head. The blow sent the dragon woman downward, descending into an endless abyss. Voices and scenes of Isolde's memories flooded her in an instant. Isolde took advantage of that, clawing off one of the woman's wings, then spearing 2 short ice spears through her shoulders. The dragon progenitor wrapped her tail around Isolde's foot, spun her around, and tossed her upward. Knowing what the progenitor wanted to get out of the surge of her memories, Isolde formed a massive purple orb. There was this crazed look on her face that astonished the dragon progenitor. The orb flew toward the woman and exploded. It burnt off most of her scales. Isolde flapped her wings, although she was still unfamiliar with them. The speed of a dragonfly was terrifying. Amongst the dragon species, they were the fastest. Isolde left a faint purple trail as she slammed the progenitor down this endless depth. With a desperate scream, the progenitor wrapped the space around them, and both of them crashed on hard rock. She breathed flames at Isolde, but the insane girl blitzed through it and slammed the dragon progenitor's face deeper into the rock. The more she used her abilities, Isolde noticed she was fadding, so she chose the route of a brute. She clawed the dragon progenitor's neck, but her claws couldn't bypass the scales. A blow from the dragon woman's knee made her recoil. Foolish beast, the dragon progenitor roared as she rose to her feet, grabbed Isolde's neck and scorched it. Isolde screamed, eyes desperately searching for a way of survival. Another use of her ability might cause her to fade completely. When she saw the flames gathering in the dragon progenitor's mouth, Isolde slammed the woman's mouth upward. She grabbed the woman's shoulders and bit down on her neck, her fangs gained from Grace and Nyx tearing through the woman's neck. Blood splattered everywhere. Isolde bit down once more and tore it open before being slammed 100 meters away right into a hill. She fell to her knees while the woman held her neck with wide eyes. A door slid open and a young man appeared there. The sky was still dark outside, with the moon high up above the drifting clouds. His ocean blue eyes were on the figure on an elevated platform covered with white cloths. Godfrey walked into the small room, while Arthur, Christine, and a few other Pendragons stayed outside. Mildred was also there. She watched with a subtle gleam as Godfrey went in. She knew he would surely come here. As an agent, making sure he was under custody was her goal. While she made her plans, Godfrey got there, lifted his hand above the white cloth, paused for a moment before lifting it up. When he saw her pale face, there was nothing. He had cried on his way, but now when he stood before her, no tears came. Just then, a portal flared up on the other side of the corpse, and the dragon progenitor with all her grievous wounds appeared, bleeding profusely. She fell backward with a loud thud, right in front of Godfrey and the others watching from behind. What just? Before Mildred and others could rush in, Solstice appeared with his swords drawn. He drew a line on the floor and flames billowed out of it. The dragon knight aimed the swords at them. Christine and Arthur looked at themselves. "We should leave," Arthur declared. "What, didn't you just see what happened there?" Mildred snapped. Solstice slammed the door in her face and stood outside. He might be in the lower level of origin tier, but Solstice was fully capable of killing those much stronger than him. He needed those merits to become a general after all. "I've never seen this knight before. This aura around this one makes me feel like I'm staring right into the eyes of a massive dragon," Christine thought. Even as someone extremely used to dragons, Solstice was on a league of his own. His dragons might as well be one of the very first, and most exceptional to make her, and other dragon summoners feel this alert. Inside the hall, Godfrey examined the dragon progenitor in her dying breath. She looked at Godfrey and at the corpse. "I'm here, finally. If only you knew who you stand before." A deep, sonorous voice made her eyes tilt toward a being clothed in robes with a rope around his waist. His head was hidden by his hood. This being came out of a door like a portal, and he wasn't the only one. "You've called us once more, Crown Prince. Plead your case," the chief alchemist declared. Other alchemists stood behind him, the golden light still shining from the door behind them. The unknown king wasn't real. He was just a myth made up by them, the alchemists, to channel the loyalty of the knights towards one source, toward one unbeatable warrior who sat hidden in the shadows, while they, his servants, built an army for him. But the mana tree took that fallacy and made it a reality. It handed over all their legacy to a little boy and forced the dignified knees of the esteemed Patan Golden Knights to bend before him. It was a slap to Patan culture, but seeing Godfrey spend hours studying the text on the walls and asking the knights, executing vengeance for them, and even treating the castle with respect softened the alchemists. And that was the only reason they agreed to help Lysander, but this was a more complicated matter. "I want her to be brought back." "She's dead," an alchemist replied. Here, Godfrey placed a fruit on the elevated platform beside Isolde's head and tossed the dragon progenitor toward the alchemists. "We can't raise a woman that is dead. Her soul is." The chief alchemist paused, her eyes gleamed with surprise. He could see Isolde in a strange barren land. She was surrounded by countless dragons. The mother of dragons, what a surprise. I guess her soul must have been touched by a flower from the mana tree, just like us. There was no way she would have attracted such attention had it not been for such favor. The chief alchemist tilted his eyes toward the dragon progenitor. He could immediately tell this was an inexperienced being born privileged. Well, she lost her place to a more desperate soul. "Well, all hope might not be lost after all," he declared. One alchemist walked past him and took the mana fruit. They made Isolde float and took her into the door with the progenitor. When the door shut, Godfrey slumped to his knees, gasping heavily. He shut his eyes tight. That was his only hope. Had it failed, he would have broken completely. Isolde would at least be alive this way. He leaned against the platform and looked at the ceiling. After a while, Godfrey rose up and walked out of the hall. As he opened the door, the Pendragons looked inside but couldn't see anyone. Godfrey noticed Arthur and Christine weren't here anymore, so he retrieved Solstice and began to walk toward their mansion when a palm seized his shoulder. "You're under arrest, Godfrey Daniels." Another hand seized his other shoulder. It was James Pendragon. "Where is my niece?" Under arrest, Godfrey tilted his head to Mildred. Even without blackout, Godfrey had the strength of a 22.8 origin tier. He gained 10% from Solstice through symbiosis. Luckily, it didn't drop like he thought. But that meant in blackout, Godfrey would be extremely close to the peak of origin tier. His glare made Mildred shudder. "Trust me, I'm barely in the right mood right now. The only reason you're alive is because you're my father-in-law's sister." Godfrey's cold voice fell into her ears. James swiftly let go of Godfrey before Mildred did. He flashed a smile when Godfrey looked at him. When did he become this terrifying? James thought as Godfrey walked away. On his way to the mansion, he suddenly paused. He looked at the trees to his left. An old man with a cane came out, trembling with each slow step. "You can deceive my eyes, but I can identify your mana signature," Godfrey stated. The old man froze and transformed back into snow. Both of them looked at each other, eyes empowered by mana gleaming intensely. "I'm sorry," Snow eventually said. "Snow, I know you can't kill Isolde," Godfrey said, not like he doubted Snow could nurture the intent, but he didn't have the ability to. Isolde couldn't be killed by him. Lightning crackled from under Godfrey's foot as he lifted it up a bit. The moment he brought that foot down, he was already before Snow. His eyes had transformed. "Tell me who did it." Snow sighed. "It might be me. There's a possibility that I'm Kane's clone." Both of them stared at each other. I only wiped out his memory for the day and sent him back to the morning. For the rest of the world, he was at the meeting, but he thinks he just woke up. No one would believe him, but I feel Godfrey might not outright kill him. Sebastian muttered to himself while he sat on a prison bed. His lips curled up a bit. The true aim was to sow a seed of doubt, and I'm 100% certain it worked. None of them knows who's the clone or if there's any. He smiled but frowned in the next second. "However, there's this odd feeling within me. Could it be that there's something that has eluded me?" The door to the living room in the Pendragon mansion was opened by a butler, and Godfrey stepped in. Christine and Arthur had sharper expressions when Snow came in after him. "Were you able to do anything about my daughter?" Christine asked. She didn't know who stabbed Isolde, but nothing they did could close the wound. "Yes, I can bring her back to life." Godfrey said, watching Snow from the corner of his eye. Snow looked genuinely shocked and then relieved. But that couldn't exclude the fact that he was a clone. If someone like his headmaster could be a clone and still be kind, the chances of Snow not being one of Kane's clones were slim. Christine covered her mouth and swiftly left the room as her eyes moistened. Arthur rose to his feet. The same way you helped that elf knight, that was the only way, Godfrey responded. She'll return as a knight then. Arthur sighed but cheered himself up. That was much better than her being dead for good. After exhaling one final time, Arthur turned to Snow. Both of you left the hall. What happened? I don't know. Snow hung his head low. He doesn't remember a thing. According to him, he woke up this evening. Godfrey's response made Arthur's frown deepen. That's the same thing the dragon officers said. They said he just left the room this evening, but it's impossible for him to do that. Is it? Godfrey raised an eyebrow while looking at Snow. He thinks he's a clone, Godfrey said as he sat down. Arthur looked at Snow. A clone. For all we know, many here might be clones, and there's no way to tell a clone apart from a real person. Arthur sat down and entwined his fingers. Kane's clones are everywhere, and we can't tell who is and who isn't. If we go the route of being easily suspicious, not only will we be heavily fooled, there would be no trust whatsoever. We would break from within while Kane grows stronger. So we know quite a bit about Kane, but can't use it against him. Godfrey frowned. Even if you can tell the clones apart, they live their own lives, they have their own personalities. Will you kill them all? In a way, their victims used to make us victims. Arthur sighed. Kane has trapped us in a loop. Not for long. Isolde should know something. Once she wakes up, I will be able to find out who killed her. For now, I can't trust a soul foolishly. Godfrey mused inwardly. So what are you guys going to do with me? Arthur and Godfrey looked at Snow. You can't leave this island, Godfrey said. Arthur looked at him with a raised eyebrow but didn't say a word. This island is pretty big. I can escape if you don't know, Snow replied. Then I'll find you. Godfrey rose to his feet. His cold eyes rested on Snow. And kill you. I need some air. I'll be back. As Godfrey walked away, Snow's eyes narrowed. Was it him, or had Godfrey changed a little bit too much? He was a lot more commanding and quite cold. Isolde's death might be a catalyst for this Godfrey. While Godfrey made his way through the forest, his mind went back to what he gained after rescuing his mother. He didn't know what happened to Ballista, but after that, he gained access to a part of the castle that wasn't a chamber. Instead, he found thousands of Golden Order knights, all on one knee. The heavy infantry unit, the archery unit, all of them in a vast place. Though they were petrified, he could summon them, although he couldn't gain anything from them. Their mission was just to do whatever he ordered them to. Unfortunately, he couldn't take a step in that place, or else he would have checked out the throne. When he had gone quite deep into the man-made forest around the mansion, Godfrey exhaled, his eyes gleaming softly, as two knights came out of portals. Not his chiefs or commanders, but normal knights with giant bows. Monitor, the black-haired man that leaves that mansion. Stay out of his range too. Both knights nodded, became invisible, and left. When Snow came out of the mansion, they followed him, ensuring there was great distance between them and Snow. Godfrey knew this surveillance wasn't foolproof. Snow was an origin tier. There was a possibility he could still spot them, but then it would let him know Godfrey's eyes were still on him. He kept to a tree branch and sat on it. Isolde's death made him realize peace was far from reach. Kane wanted to use him. Kane wanted the Golden Order Knights. That was what Gabriel told him, and since it was the Golden Order Knights that brought his downfall, it was quite obvious Kane would either convert them or loathe them. But considering his mindset, using those knights to achieve his ambition would be better than seeking vengeance. Right now I'm blind. If Snow is indeed a clone and he could be used, doesn't that mean the clones at Paradise could lose it at any moment? Paradise isn't safe, but where is safe? Godfrey clenched his teeth. Getting stronger was the only path forward he could see for now. No matter how strong he got, Kane was like a green snake in a green grass. Maybe I should speak to Gabriel. He knows a lot, he might be able to offer good advice on what to do. Or maybe I should find a way to speak to the headmaster, he might be helpful. Godfrey shut his eyes. What should he do? Where was safe? His eyes opened in his soul space. Staring at the magnificent castle, a certain sense of peace settled in his heart. It dawned on Godfrey. I feel safe here, but my true body is outside. But can't I unleash my castle? It's my summon after all. If I can't now, what about when I become a king? Will it be possible then? He walked into the castle and went straight to the last door. Previously, when he came, it had only runes, but now the door was plain with a towering spear etched at where both sides of the door met. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down.